Hello, folks. Welcome to the Civilization Project podcast. As always, today we are discussing everything and anything related to our civilization, what we can do about it, and the decisions involved in the operations of it. Today, with me, I have a very dear friend and intriguing personality, Mr. Prathamesh Gosavi. But before we get to him, I just want to give you a tiny introduction about him. He calls himself a student of decision making, which is extremely intriguing if you ask me, and it is what caught my eye. He's a lovely friend, and hopefully we have some great discussions with him today. But before that, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, where you're watching from, whenever you're watching it. Please make yourself a cup of kadak chai, sit back, relax, and let's discuss decision making. Yeah. So Sarji, कैसे हैं आप?
बस एकदम बढ़िया भाई, तुम बताओ।
Been a long time, past 4 minutes, 5 minutes since we had a conversation. But no, working with you is such an intriguing process because the first time we met, you said you're studying decisions, and that's what particularly caught my eye, right? Because बहुत कम बार हम decisions पढ़ते हैं, हम decisions लेते हैं, right? बहुत बार यही एक problem होता है, और the minute I heard you say that, something just clicked inside my head. I'm like, ये बंदा सिर्फ interesting ही नहीं है, इस बंदे से कुछ सीख सकते हैं, which was like a great place in my head. So, where did all of this start from? Why decision making? ये student क्या है?
Got it. So to be honest, all of this was triggered by one book. That book is called The Art of Thinking Clearly.
Yeah.
I was struggling in my life. I
Yeah.
was there in a situation where there was no good choice to be made. I was building a company and I was emotionally invested, financially invested. And having said that, I was not happy with what we were doing in terms of how we were building that company. I was not happy, right? And फिर एक सवाल वो बार सता रहा था कि यार अगर तुम खुश नहीं हो तो इसको क्यों कंटिन्यू कर रहे हो? But being a co-founder, it's not a luxury you always have. It's not like a job which you can just leave at the moment's go. Because there's a lot of responsibility which is there on your head,
Right.
And especially if you have raised money from other people, then it's liability on your head.
Yes.
So it's not easy to move away from that. It's
Right.
not easy to just switch gears and change your life in terms of direction.
Right.
So there were only two very difficult choices in front of me. One, I continue with what we were doing, try and change as much as possible. But be happy with whatever I'm getting, right? And even if I'm not happy, I just live through it. And the other was, I decided to move away, but it was still not going to make me happy because I knew that it was going to cause a lot of pain and a lot of trouble.
Right.
Not just to me, but all the people who were there involved. Because मेरे को पता था कि जब मैं बाहर निकलूँगा तो शायद ये जो भी हम लोग बना रहे हैं वो पूरा plan fail हो जाएगा. The house of cards will fall down.
Right.
So yeah, it was a very difficult situation to be in, and there were no easy decisions to be made.
Right.
Which is when I found this book. A very good friend recommended to me it actually. This book actually talks about more than 100 cognitive biases which affect our decision making.
Right.
So as simple as something like survivorship bias, right?
Right.
जो हम बहुत सारे artists में, बहुत सारे entrepreneurs में, बहुत सारे startup founders में एक typical ये phenomenon देखते हैं. सबको लगता है कि यार मैं अगला शाहरुख खान बनूंगा, मैं अगला फेसबुक बनाऊंगा, मैं अगला सुंदर पिचाई बनाऊंगा, मैं अगला इलॉन मस्क बनूंगा. What we tend to forget is इलॉन मस्क एक बनता है, शाहरुख खान एक बनता है, और उसके पीछे लाखों लोग होते हैं जो ट्राई करके फेल हो चुके होते हैं, जिनकी तरफ हम लोग का ध्यान नहीं जाता. Because media does not talk about the stories of failure.
Right.
Media only glamorizes the success stories.
Right.
And when we are chasing that success story, we tend to forget about all the people who have failed at it.
Right.
I'm not saying that you will fail.
Right.
But I'm saying is it is important to understand and important to accept that we can fail. Right? वो रिस्क जो होता है हमारे पाथ में उसको जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है, उसको समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है, उसको एक्सेप्ट करना बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Right.
Now this phenomenon of neglecting this risk is called survivorship bias.
Right.
ऐसे 100 से ज़्यादा अलग अलग cognitive biases है जो हम लोग के decisions को affect कर रहे हैं.
Okay.
The point that I realized is there's a lot of science behind the decisions we are making, right? Slowly and steadily, I started reading more, I started studying more, I started watching more videos on YouTube. I used to read anything and everything I could get my hands on.
Right.
फिर मैं न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने का वैसे भी बचपन से बहुत शौक था, तो उसमें हमेशा न्यूज़ पढ़ता था कि RBI ने डिसीजन ले लिया, मेरे को रेपो रेट बढ़ाना है या कम करना है.
Right.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डिसीजन ले लिया कि मेरे को किसी केस में मेरे को कुछ तो चेंजेस करने हैं, या फिर किसी को फांसी की सजा दे दी, किसी को जेल में डाल दिया, राइट, किसी को 200 साल के लिए जेल में डाल दिया. वो भी कुछ फैसले सुना रहा था. पॉलिटिशियंस आके कुछ स्पीच देते थे कि यार हम लोग अगर पावर में आते हैं, हम लोग अगर सत्ता में आते हैं, तो हम लोग ये डिसीजन लेंगे, हम लोग वो डिसीजन लेंगे, हम लोग ये पॉलिसी इंप्लीमेंट करेंगे, हम लोग वो पॉलिसी इंप्लीमेंट करेंगे. जब मैं बिजनेस लीडर्स के स्पीचेस देखता था, उनके इंटरव्यूज देखता था, दे यूज्ड टू कीप ऑन टॉकिंग अबाउट डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ बिजनेस डिसीजन दे वर मेकिंग, कि हम लोग किससे फंड्स उठा रहे हैं, हम लोग कौन सा प्रोडक्ट बेच रहे हैं, हम लोग किस मार्केट में एंटर कर रहे हैं. और फिर मैं जब करियर काउंसलर्स के कुछ वीडियोस देखता था, कुछ पॉडकास्ट देखता था, वो बोलते रहते थे कि यार आपके करियर डिसीजंस आपको कैसे लेने चाहिए.
राइट.
आपको इंजीनियरिंग करनी चाहिए, आपको डॉक्टर बनना चाहिए, आपको लॉयर बनना चाहिए. धीरे धीरे ये रियलाइज हुआ कि हम जिसे रियलिटी कहते हैं, जिसे हमारे लाइफ का एक रियल एक्सपीरियंस कहते हैं, इट्स नथिंग बट एन आउटकम ऑफ द डिसीजंस वी आर कॉन्स्टेंटली मेकिंग.
इंटरेस्टिंग.
आई ऑल्सो रियलाइज्ड कि ये हमेशा दिमाग में रहता था कि यार 10 साल पहले मैंने 10-15 साल मैंने जब इंजीनियरिंग के लिए एडमिशन ली, तब मैं साइकोलॉजी के लिए भी एडमिशन ले चुका था.
ओके.
बट बिकॉज इंजीनियरिंग में एडमिशन मिल गई, मैंने वो साइकोलॉजी का सीट छोड़ के आई वेंट टू माई इंजीनियरिंग डेज. और फिर भी दिमाग में चलता रहता था कि यार काश मैंने उस समय साइकोलॉजी की होती, काश मैंने इंजीनियरिंग नहीं किया होता. एंड आई थिंक दिस इज वन थॉट व्हिच ट्रबल्स अ लॉट ऑफ अस, राइट, कि मैंने 5 साल पहले ये किया होता तो क्या किया होता.
ये आपका एक्टिव डिसीजन था लेकिन, और यू जस्ट टुक इट ऑन अ whim or something just felt right?
To be honest, there was some parental pressure also.
Right.
I was scared कि यार मैं मेरे पेरेंट्स को कैसे समझाऊं कि मेरे को इंजीनियरिंग नहीं करनी है,
Indian parents,
और मेरे को साइकोलॉजी करनी है. Exactly. So which is why technically it was not a very deeply contemplated decision. It was a very easy decision कि चलो इंजीनियरिंग में एडमिशन मिल गया, चलो इंजीनियरिंग करते हैं, क्योंकि घर वालों को भी वही चाहिए. बट द पॉइंट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक इज, हम लोग हमेशा ये सोचते रहते हैं कि मैं अगर 5 साल पहले ये करता तो क्या होता, मैं अगर उसको ये बोलता तो क्या होता, मैं अगर उसको थप्पड़ मारता तो क्या होता, मैंने क्यों सुन के ली उसकी.
What ifs,
all the what ifs, right? Yes. And if you look at the Marvel का पूरा series, what if का series, it's all about different consequences of different choices people would have made. Right. Yeah, there's this very interesting movie called The Butterfly Effect. Ashton Kutcher.
Yes. Great.
It's on the same concept. उसके पास वो एक magical diary आती है जिसमें वो लिखता है कि मेरे को ये change करना है, and his entire life changes. So that was again that added to my realization that okay, the choices we're making every day is deciding who I am.
Yes.
And it's defining what I call as my destiny or fate.
Yes.
So फिर again interest और बढ़ गया थोड़ा सा, फिर मैं और पढ़ाई करना शुरू किया. And again I don't think ये पढ़ाई कभी खत्म होगी.
Of course.
क्योंकि ये decisions का scope इतना बड़ा है. ये अलग-अलग levels पे ये decisions किए जा रहे हैं. There is always a time period which एक डिसीजन लेने के बाद उसका इम्पैक्ट देखने में थोड़ा टाइम लगता है, राइट. नॉट ऑल द डिसीजंस आर वेरी क्विक. आप आज डिसीजन लेते हो, उसका रिजल्ट आपको 5 दिन बाद, 10 दिन बाद, कई बार 1 साल बाद, 5 साल बाद दिखाई देता है. सो देयर इज अ टाइम एलिमेंट इन्वॉल्वड एज वेल. सो दैट इज व्हाई आई कीप ऑन सेइंग आई एम अ स्टूडेंट ऑफ द डिसीजन मेकिंग, क्योंकि एज ऑफ नाउ hundreds and thousands of people are making certain choices, making certain decisions which is affecting their individual reality, and at a collective level it is defining the reality of society we live in also.
Yes.
It's defining the reality of my civilization also.
Yes.
That's why I keep on saying I'm a student of decision making, because I can never be a master per se. I can always remain a student.
Oh, great, excellent. I also remember जब हमारे पहली बार कॉन्वर्सेशन हुआ था, तो आपने कॉन्स्टेंटली 5 लेवल्स के बारे में बात किया था डिसीजन मेकिंग. फॉर एग्जांपल सेल्फ जो है, सेल्फ लेवल पे मतलब अभी चाय पीना है, अभी कॉफी पीनी है, शादी करनी है कि नहीं, मूवी देखना है क्या नहीं. टू द स्कोप 5th level, which is I'm sure you will tell all the 5 levels, but the 5th level is something on a civilization level, right? The last level जहाँ पे हर एक चीज़ का, like you said, butterfly effect, हर एक चीज़ का डिसीजन का जो इम्पैक्ट है, it's all contributing towards a bigger conclusion, right? So ये 5 levels जो है, like if you could tell that to the audience as well as एक इंसान को, for our viewers who are watching right now as well as someone like me who's sitting in front of you, ये क्यों ज़रूरी है हर एक लेवल की पढ़ाई करना और उस लेवल के डिसीजन मेकिंग का जो इम्पैक्ट है उसका इंफॉर्मेशन रखना क्यों इतना ज़रूरी है आजकल की सोसाइटी?
So, when I talk about the reality of life, it's constructed on the decisions being made on 5 levels.
Right.
The first level, of course, is हमारा खुद के decisions,
Right.
personal decisions,
Right.
self के decisions.
Yeah.
Right. The choices we make for our education, our career choices, our relationship choices, our lifestyle decisions. हम शादी किससे करने वाले हैं, हम किसको डेट कर रहे हैं,
Right.
अगर हम किसी को डेट कर रहे हैं तो हम लोग चीट करेंगे नहीं करेंगे, क्या हम लोग सिर्फ एक इंसान या एक बंदे के साथ या एक बंदी के साथ डेट करेंगे या विल हैव मल्टीपल पार्टनर्स.
Right.
All of these are choices which we are making for ourselves, right? That's the first level. Second level पे आता है जब हम लोग टीम बनकर कुछ decisions लेना शुरू करते हैं. The first example is family, right? There are a lot of decisions we make as family.
Okay.
There are a lot of decisions we make as a group of friends, right? जैसे आपने बोला कि मूवी देखने जाना है,
Right.
So we generally do a very crude version of voting. कि हम लोग
Right.
5 लोग मिलके decide करते हैं कि कौन से मूवी में जाना है, तो हम लोग सबका feedback ले रहे हैं कि यार, और फिर हम लोग vote करेंगे यार 4 लोग को ये मूवी देखना है तो चलो 5 और भी vote चला जाएगा वहाँ पे. So we are making certain decisions as groups, right? As teams. So friends हो गए, family हो गया, या पूरा business management अगर आप देखोगे तो it's all about making decisions as teams. Your marketing team, sales teams, HR teams, operation teams, product teams, so on and so forth. Sports देखोगे तो वो पूरा team decision है, right? So you've got a selection team which decides कि कौन सा playing 11 एक match खेलेगा, cricket का match खेलेगा.
Right.
If you're looking at the playing 11, there's a captain, but there's the entire team which is making decisions कि किसको over डालना चाहिए, कितना score रखना चाहिए, fielding pattern क्या रखना चाहिए. All of these decisions you are making as teams. Right. So that's the second level of decision making. Third level पे हम लोग society बनकर कुछ decisions लेते हैं, हम समाज बनकर कुछ decisions लेते हैं. The easiest example is elections. Right. When we vote someone to power. फिर वो पंचायत के इलेक्शंस हो, फिर वो आपके स्टेट इलेक्शंस हो, म्यूनसिपैलिटी के इलेक्शंस हो, या कंट्री लेवल के इलेक्शंस, लोकसभा राज्यसभा तो नहीं, लोकसभा के इलेक्शंस हो, जहाँ पे हम किसी को वोट करके लेके आ रहे हैं तो पोजीशन ऑफ पावर कि आप हमारी सोसाइटी का ध्यान रखो.
Right.
At the same time, there are a lot of lobbying groups, right? अगर आप US में जाओगे तो lobbying is official, it's legal, it's a way of doing business. But यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा under the table चलता है, right? Where you've got different groups of societies, representative groups होते हैं, जो constantly ministries के साथ, ministers के साथ और cabinets के साथ lobbying कर रहे होते हैं कि यार हमारी सोसाइटी का ये प्रॉब्लम है, हमारे सोसाइटी का ये प्रॉब्लम, इसको सॉल्व कर दो, इसको सॉल्व कर दो. फिर वो रोड की समस्या हो सकती है, पानी की समस्या हो सकती है, या फिर सोशल रिलीजन की प्रॉब्लम्स हो सकते हैं. सो ये लॉबिंग इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ योर डिसीजंस यू आर मेकिंग एज सोसाइटी.
Right.
फोर्थ लेवल पे आता है जो हम लोग कंट्री बनकर कुछ डिसीजंस लेते हैं, राइट? इंडिया कुछ डिसीजंस लेता है, पाकिस्तान कुछ डिसीजंस लेता है, अमेरिका कुछ डिसीजंस लेता है, चाइना कुछ डिसीजंस लेता है. If you look at how these decisions are being made, it's a very complicated structure because then you have got your governance bodies.
Scale बहुत बड़ी है.
For example, if you look at India, तो वहाँ पे आपका लोकसभा है, राज्यसभा है, कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर है, अलग अलग प्रकार के काउंसिल्स होते हैं, अलग अलग प्रकार के कमिटीज होते हैं. फिर आपका रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज अलग होते हैं, जैसे आपका RBI हो गया, या फिर आपका जुडिशियल सिस्टम है, जैसे आपका सुप्रीम कोर्ट, हाई कोर्ट, डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट्स हो गए. So that decision making is essentially broken down. Then you have bodies like Niti Aayog, which are writing white papers, doing a lot of research, and suggesting the government on what are the policy decisions they should make to whatever problems जो भी है country में उसको solve करने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए. Think tanks होते हैं जो contribute करते हैं कि ये decision ले लो, वो decision ले लो in terms of what equipment to buy, how should you organize your military forces, how should you solve your foreign policy problems, so on and so forth. But essentially you're making decisions in national interest, right? You're making decisions as a country.
Right.
वो इंडिया के decisions हैं, वो पाकिस्तान के decisions हैं.
Right.
वो पार्टी कौन सी भी हो पा रही है, लेकिन वो decision मुझे ले रहे हैं, वो इंडिया के ले रहे हैं.
Right.
और लास्ट लेवल पे आता है जो हमारे सिविलाइजेशन के decisions हैं, जो ग्लोबल decisions हैं, जो ग्लोबल इंटरेस्ट में लिए जाते हैं.
Sustainability
हो गया, क्लाइमेट चेंज हो गया, एनवायरमेंट प्रोटेक्शन हो गया, वॉर्स हो गए, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मैनेजमेंट हो गया, pandemic हो गया, right? Pandemic was a global challenge.
Yes.
This is essentially where your bodies like UN, WHO, WTO, IMF, World Bank, all of these start to play a role because they are meant to make decisions with global interests in mind, right?
Right.
वो बायस नहीं हो सकते कि यार अमेरिका बहुत अच्छा इकोनॉमी है, बहुत बड़ा इकोनॉमी है, तो मैं सिर्फ अमेरिका को सपोर्ट करूँगा।
राइट, पूरे सिविलाइजेशन का
उनको पूरे सिविलाइजेशन को ध्यान रहता है, उनको पूरी दुनिया का ध्यान देना है, राइट? सो if they are observing that okay, America is very highly progressed and they are very rich in certain set of resources, economic resources or other kind of resources, but you have got this bunch of countries in Africa which are extremely impoverished, which are extremely poor. It is their job to essentially balance this equation out. वो कितना करते हैं, कितना नहीं करते हैं, that's a different debate.
Right.
But that is their job because they are meant to make decisions in global interest. उनको civilization का ध्यान देना है.
Right.
At the same time, you've got these different international groupings. You've got your international groupings like your G7, G20, या BRICS हो गया, T5 हो गया.
Right.
So international relations at large हो गए, जहाँ पे अलग अलग कंट्रीज एक दूसरे के साथ काम करती हैं to solve these problems at global scale. So technically, these are the 5 levels on which decisions are being made. Okay. So first level is yourself, second is teams, third is society, fourth is nation state or country, and last is global decisions, civilization decisions.
Okay. Just in case you need a break, I know ये काफी heavy था. We will shift to slightly fun questions now for a change. But I mean, because I know him so well, he is so capable of going into the technical information. It's one of his strengths, I consider. But I mean, yes, ये पांचों levels are all connected,
yes,
and each level affects the other level, as well as all of the levels, right? So for example, एक vaccination अगर topic हो, the decision to vaccination, हमने बहुत बड़ा discussion किया था उस पे. So जो पांचों levels है, उस पे ये decision affect कर रहा है, right? क्योंकि personally मेरा decision है, do I want to vaccinate myself or not? Then family का है, do we want to vaccinate, our baby or whatever it is. Society का है कि भाई हमें नहीं चाहिए vaccination आज. Then probably state country का होगा कि ये vaccination चाहिए, ये strain के लिए ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए, XYZ. और फिर country का, like country के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा political differences आए थे, especially ये Pfizer का हो गया और USA का पूरा वो बड़ा सा कांड हुआ है कि lack of information sharing at this point. So एक vaccination जैसा decision है जो पांचों levels को affect करता है, right? This is on a very deeper level. But now shifting slightly to a very personal level, I'm sure the audience would like to know as well. Someone, everyone who's watching right now, what is that one decision that you struggle with every single day? Because I remember हम जब मिले थे तो something very interesting happened. I remember one time I asked you कि sir समझ में नहीं आ रहा दिल या दिमाग. Sorry, दिल और दिमाग is what I said, and you had corrected me back then and said it's दिल या दिमाग. He's like neither can exist without the other, right? Decision making का तो यही फंडा है कि दिमाग और दिल दोनों यूज करके फिर देखो decision क्या आता है, emotions as well as क्या logic, right? So what is that one decision which you personally struggle with every single day? ऐसा कौन सा है वो?
Interesting. To be very honest, this is the one decision that I've struggled with throughout my entire life.
Yeah.
Is whether to exercise or not.
I completely feel you. और ये मौसम ही ऐसा है.
Yeah. So to be honest, मेरे को gym हमेशा बोर हुआ है. I've never been a very big fan of gyms. I feel claustrophobic. I feel suffocated. I feel very weird when I go inside a gym. मैंने बहुत बार जिम का पैसा भरा है. I feel that's my way of charity.
Yes.
मैं हमेशा पैसा भरता हूँ. 6 महीने का सब्सक्रिप्शन लेता हूँ.
Yes.
ज़्यादा मैं 6 दिन भी नहीं हूँ.
Yes.
So I've made a lot of gyms richer.
Yes.
And I've never been there.
Yes.
So it was all pure profit for them. But that is one decision which I've struggled with every day. And I think ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे को मोटिवेशन नहीं हुआ था. ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे को इच्छा नहीं है फिट रहने की. There was one point in time where I used to exercise like nobody's business. मेरा daily routine था 200 crunches, 200 sit-ups, 5 kilometers of jogging. To an extent, full commando training. To an extent where I used to, so there was a very good friend of mine, Subodh नाम था उसका, अभी भी याद है. मैं उसको कंधे में उठाता था. And I used to do 20 sit-ups, 30 sit-ups with him on my shoulders.
God
right?
damn.
That is the extreme level of
WWE level हो गया. Yeah.
I've been in that phase of my life as well.
Right.
Having said that, I still struggle with that one decision. रोज रात को सोने से पहले सोच के जाता हूँ कि यार कल सुबह जल्दी उठना है, जॉगिंग करना है, वर्कआउट करना है, ये करना है, वो करना है. तो when the time comes actually to get out of my bed and to go to my terrace and do my workout,
गाड़ी जाती ही नहीं है आगे, गाड़ी वहीं पे. I know Sanjay, I know, I am very relatable. I mean, हम दोनों खाते पीते करके है ही. So I mean, it's also the weather, I'm sure, influences it.
Yeah.
Which leads me to a very interesting question, because I had, I was just doing my basic research, and I'm always, I'm very surprised every single time कि एक मर्द का जो डिसीजन मेकिंग होता है और एक औरत का जो डिसीजन मेकिंग होता है उसी सेम टॉपिक पे पोलर ऑपोजिट हो सकता है. पोलर ऑपोजिट, चलो इन्फॉर्मेशन भी दोनों को सेम दी गई हुई है, राइट. और फिर कौन ज़्यादा इमोशंस यूज़ करता है, कौन ज़्यादा प्रैग्मेटिक लॉजिक जैसे आपने कहा यूज़ करता है, किसके पास ज़्यादा ब्लेंड है दोनों चीज़ों का, ये बहुत वेरी करता है, राइट. सो ये जेंडर के बारे में ही नहीं है, ये हर एक इंसान के बारे में है, अकॉर्डिंग टू एज एज वेल जो बोलते हैं हम. सो आई मीन, अकॉर्डिंग टू यू, व्हाट आर some of the let's say underrated factors that affect decision making, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know this. बहुत लोगों को decision making ये बहुत innate चीज़ लगती है कि चलो जो मोमेंट में लेंगे वही डिसीजन होगा, बट जो बड़ी चीज़ों का डिसीजन होगा I doubt you can take them very spontaneously. So क्या है ऐसे factors?
So before even going into the differences between how two genders make their decisions, I would like to talk about a much more generic pattern first, right? There's a lot of debate which happens around what are rational decisions and what are irrational decisions.
Yeah.
And if you look at the entire bombarding in social media right now or across all the media forms, one idea that has been sold to us is emotion को separate करो, logic को separate करो, और जो logic से decision लोगे वो रैशनल डिसीजन लोगे.
Yes.
जो इमोशन पे डिपेंडेंट डिसीजन लोगे वो इरैशनल है.
Right.
That is one story which I would like to challenge.
Okay.
Because as humans, emotions and logic are a fundamental part of our being, our existence.
Right.
दोनों में से किसी को भी एक को निकाल दो, we are not complete as a human being, right? As a human, we are a social creature. So, जब सोशल क्रीचर या जब हम लोग सोसाइटी का पार्ट होते हैं, इमोशंस आर ऑलवेज गोइंग टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ अस,
राइट,
irrespective of whether we want to accept it or not.
Right.
There will be a few set of people who will be able to control their emotion. And when I say control their emotion, it is about when and how do I express my emotion, not whether I feel it or not. Right?
Yes.
It's about the control is on when
Expression.
and how do you express your emotion.
Right.
If you don't have control over when and how to express it, that is definitely a problem. But if you stop accepting your emotion in the first place,
रोबोट मतलब पूरा,
that is even a bigger problem.
yeah,
Because emotions are a very integral part of us, philosophically and scientifically as well. Right? Same with logic. If you look at why the human being has been able to get out of the food chain and become the most dominant species on this entire planet,
right,
it's because our sense of logic is very vastly evolved over all the other species. ऐसा नहीं है कि बाकी जो animal forms है उनके पास logic नहीं है. Even they have logic. Even they have an understanding of how to operate in this world. Even they have emotions. If you look at dogs, if you look at cats, if you look at even bigger animals like your elephants and tigers, and even smaller animals like your, say, rats and tortoises,
Yes.
even they have got emotions and logic.
yes,
But their sense of logic is limited. Their sense of logic is limited to their survival. Human being has evolved out of the food chain and it has become the most dominant species on this planet because its sense of logic is thoda sa more evolved.
yes,
The point I'm trying to make is both of them are necessary. Now, if both of them are necessary, how do we make decisions? हम लोग इमोशंस पे ज़्यादा डिपेंडेंट होंगे, हम लोग लॉजिक पे ज़्यादा डिपेंडेंट होंगे, या इसको बैलेंस आउट कैसे करें?
right,
What I would like to propose is this, ठीक है? let's start considering our emotions as the fuel
Okay.
that we have
Okay.
to make and execute decisions.
Right.
Let's take an example. Let's say someone has done something wrongly. ठीक है, आप कुछ तो एक ज़मीन लेना चाहते थे, आपने कुछ एडवांस दिया था, 10 लाख रुपए, 20 लाख रुपए, 30 लाख रुपए, जो भी था, एंड द अदर पर्सन चीट्स यू आउट ऑफ इट. उसने आपके 30 लाख रुपए ले लिए, लेकिन उसकी ज़मीन भी उसने आपको ज़मीन भी नहीं बेची,
Right.
और आपके 30 लाख रुपए डूब.
Right.
It's going to cause you massive amount of pain and suffering.
Yes.
It's going to create a lot of sense of anger,
Yes.
right? And you cannot deny it.
Yes.
If you deny these emotions, you're saying कि हाँ एक हो गया,
Yeah.
क्या करूँ मैं? चलो let's move. Because you've denied your emotions, right? But when you don't deny those emotions, now the challenge becomes how do you express your emotion?
Right.
The first idea that generally will come to your mind is मेरे को इस पर बदला लेना है. कि साले तूने मेरे 30 लाख रुपए डुबाए.
Yes.
Right? वो कौन सा मूवी था? I forget the name. Bollywood movie था on the same topic, right? Then they create this entire con, जो con बनता है उसको ही लोग con करते हैं. I forget the name.
Yeah.
आ जाएगा नाम.
Yeah. Please tell us. I mean.
Yeah, you can share it.
बहुत कम movies देखता हूँ. I'm sure he watches a lot more, but yeah.
But the point is, now you've been paid, right? This pain, this suffering is going to be your fuel.
Right.
To make certain decisions which can probably correct this wrong in your life.
Right.
What are the options in front of you? You can either go to a police station, file a complaint, and pursue
Legal
this
course जो है.
जो legal course. Yeah, then there are other out of the book ways also, which are definitely not recommended.
Yeah.
But which will of course come to your mind.
Yes.
Right? ये जो आपका इमोशन पूल था, आप इसमें कितना डिपेंड कर सकते हो, आप इसको कितना यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो.
Right.
That will determine whether you can pursue all of these options in front of you,
Yes.
to what extent, and whether
Yes.
you can get this wrong corrected or not, whether you can exact this revenge or not,
Yes.
in a legal or any other way. Right? I am
Right.
not recommending anything here.
Of course.
Right? But I am, as a student of decision making, I am coming from a point of view that I cannot consider anything right or wrong.
Yes.
Right? I can only consider the consequences you want and the choices you
Best
have in
outcome
front of
किससे
you.
मिलेगा? Yes.
Right.
Is the best.
What happens is when you are choosing to go through a route which is illegal,
Right.
you are essentially adopting a risk. कि मैं अगर इसमें पकड़ा गया तो मेरे को भी सजा हो सकती है.
Right.
Whether you are willing to accept that risk or not, that's your choice.
Yes. Yes.
I would always recommend that risk is not acceptable.
Yes.
You should not take that risk.
Yes.
But again, it's your choice. I cannot force anything on you. Coming back, जो भी आपको कॉन्सिक्वेंस चाहिए, अगर आपको वो 30 लाख रुपए वापस चाहिए, या आपको वो ज़मीन चाहिए, या उस पर आपको रिवेंज होना चाहिए, या उसको सज़ा होनी चाहिए, जो भी आपको कॉन्सिक्वेंस चाहिए,
Right.
you will have choices in front of you.
Right.
Whether you decide to pursue those choices or not, and to what extent are you willing to pursue those choices or not, that will be determined by how open you are to accepting your emotional influences.
Can you simplify this? What you just said.
Let's
right
take
now?
another example. Let's take the example of relationships. थोड़ा सा आसान, थोड़ा सा
More
हल्के
relatable
फुल्के-
थोड़ा.
हाँ, थोड़ा सा हल्के फुल्के example
Yeah, sure,
Let's look at
problems.
relationships, right? What is happening around us right now is we see that relationships are breaking down, right? The fundamental premise of any relationship is the feeling of love, the feeling of happiness which you feel with each other, right? That is why we are in a particular relationship.
Right.
Now, across the entire spectrum of relationships, say from a one-night stand to a long-living marriage, where you take the promise of till the death does us apart.
Yes.
Right? Across this entire spectrum of relationship, your level of emotion for each other is different. In a one-night stand, there's hardly any emotion per se.
Right.
There's only a need to have sex.
Yes.
Right? Once that need is satisfied, both of you are going
Ciao.
your
Yes.
own way.
Yes.
To a long-term stable relationship where your emotions are interconnected, where
Right.
you share a very deep sense of emotion with each other, which we
Right.
call love.
Yes.
Right? अगर आप एक दूसरे के साथ सही में बहुत प्यार करते हो, अगर आपका एक दूसरे के लिए इमोशन बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है, आपके रिलेशनशिप्स में कितने भी प्रॉब्लम्स आए, you'll try and find a way to work those out.
Right. Of course.
Right? But again, that comes with a sense of understanding and acceptance that, okay, I have a lot of emotions
Yes.
which are linked to this person. This
Yes.
person makes me feel happy. This person makes me feel good. This person makes me feel complete.
Yes.
Right? अब ये sense of completeness क्या है, उस पर भी बहुत debate चलता है. We can go into that also. But zooming out, this sense of emotion which you share with each other, it's very necessary to make that relationship work.
Right.
When this emotion pool dies down, when you don't have emotion for each other left, for whatever reasons, maybe you have found out that the other person cheated on you,
Yes.
which kills all the emotions that you had because it's filled. ये जो emotion pool था,
Betrayal.
ये जो emotion pool था, which was filled with love and happiness and belonging, sense of belongingness and all of that, it's now filled with resentment and anger.
Of course.
When that emotion pool is filled with resentment and anger now, you're not going to make choices which will resolve that issue, which will make your relationship work. Now your brain is thinking कि मेरे को इस relationship से बाहर आना है, which is why we call it as a toxic relationship.
Right.
Because it's changed your pool of emotions.
Right.
From love and happiness to resentment and anger.
Of course.
Right? So, and मान के चलो ये कुछ toxic relationship वाला part भी नहीं आता. It's just that things are not working out.
Right.
You've grown away from each other over a long period of time. वहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? आपका emotion जो था एक दूसरे के लिए वो धीरे धीरे कम होते होते एक पॉइंट पे इस लेवल पे आता है कि इमोशन कुछ बचा ही नहीं.
Right.
Which is why you don't want to even make an effort. Right? When there's no emotion left in a relationship, you don't have any willingness to make an effort to make that relationship.
Yes.
Right? Which is where again relationship starts breaking down.
Right.
So that's why I keep on saying emotion और logic को हम लोग separate नहीं कर सकते.
Yes,
logic is necessary because it tells us how to make decisions and how to make effective decisions and how to execute those decisions. Right? But वो emotion भी बहुत ज़रूरी है because that is the fuel.
Yes.
Which is helping you make those decisions.
Yes.
Which is deciding, or ironically, all the puns intended, your emotions are deciding what decisions you are going to make.
Yes. Yes.
Without emotions, you will not make any decisions. फिर वो आपके decisions है ही कहाँ? अगर आपका emotion बोल रहा है कि मेरे को बहुत दुख हो रहा है, लेकिन सामने वाला बोल रहा है कि चल एक काम करते हैं अपन पार्टी करके आते हैं, आप पार्टी करने चले गए, you're trying to forget your emotions.
The programming of
your emotions. You're trying to numb your emotions and forget what is paining you, what is causing you pain. Right? You're trying to distract yourself.
Right. Makes sense. Because ये काफ़ी प्यारा throwback है. I had a very lovely conversation with a dear friend of mine. और जो सोशल मीडिया पे अभी सबसे ज़्यादा जो इशू है जेंडर का इशू कि मैन वर्सेस वुमेन जो सोशल मीडिया ने हमें एक जेल में डाल के रखा है जहाँ पे हमेशा देयर इज ओनली वन फाइट मैन वर्सेस वुमेन. सो द कॉन्वर्सेशन विद माई फ्रेंड शी गेव अ वेरी लवली पर्सपेक्टिव. शी सेज कि अभी सबसे ज़्यादा जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कहाँ से आ रही है. शी इज लाइक आज तक सोसाइटी में एक मर्द को मोर प्रैग्मेटिक मोर लॉजिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से देखा गया है, उसके डिसीजंस, उसका स्टेट ऑफ बीइंग, वर्सेस एक औरत को एज अ मोर इमोशन ड्रिवन इमोशनल पर्सन दिखाया गया है. और इसकी वजह से बहुत हैवी कंडीशनिंग हुआ है हम दोनों पे, आप पे और मुझ पे. द वे आई सी विमेन, द वे विमेन सी मी एज वेल, ऑल ऑफ दिस हैज बीन इन्वॉल्व. और नाउ इट्स इन अ क्या बोलते हैं वो, उसका कबड्डी हो रही है एक दोनों चीज़ होती है राइट एट दिस पॉइंट. सो और अभी जिस पॉइंट पे सोसाइटी है, सोसाइटी अभी along especially the two genders, man and woman, they don't want to conform to what has been told, what has been taught, right? कि नहीं भाई, I am not a pragmatic person, I am an emotional person. As a man, I would like to call myself, my emotions drive my decision making. A woman perhaps might say कि you know what, I'm more pragmatic. ये जो कंडीशनिंग है और जो रियलिटी है और जो ब्रॉट ऑन वाली रियलिटी है वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में है, राइट? विच इज़ वाई अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स आर बीइंग क्रिएटेड, विच इज़ वाई जो इस पॉइंट पे सोशल मीडिया में सब लोग चिल्लाते रहे कि यू नो शेड असाइड योर कंडीशनिंग. सो व्हाट इज योर टेक ऑन आर एक्सपेक्टेड रियलिटी राइट नाउ, द काइंड ऑफ पीपल वी आर वर्सेस सोसाइटी ने जो कंडीशनिंग किया है उसकी वजह से डू यू थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स आर अराइजिंग राइट नाउ, और डू यू थिंक we are over reading into the entire situation at this point?
So I'd like to break this entire situation down into 3 separate things.
Okay.
Okay. First is, how do we make decisions?
Right.
As an individual or at any of these levels. ठीक है? आप पांचों levels ले लो, उन सारे decisions के 5 building blocks हैं. दूसरा है कि हम लोग पे ये conditioning कहाँ से आता है और क्या conditioning आता है. What does this conditioning mean? ठीक है? And third is the exact problem that we are looking at right now.
Right.
ठीक है? Let's first talk about our building blocks of any decision. ठीक है? There are only 5 building blocks. The first is your sense of identity, the sense of who you are. Second is your personality.
Okay.
Third is your purpose. Fourth is your motivation. And fifth is trade.
Okay. Fifth is?
Trade.
Trade.
Trade in the sense, your skills. What value can you create? What value do you consume?
Right.
क्या कर सकते हो और क्या खरीदते हो, क्या consume करते हो to create what you want to create.
Yes.
All your decisions at all these 5 levels are with the same 5 building blocks.
Right.
Let's focus on the first building block, which is identity. Your sense of who you are. Right? When you say I am a man of a 30, of say my age is 30-year-old, I'm an Indian, I stay in Pune, so you are a Punekar, you are a Maharashtrian, you are a Hindu, you are a Brahmin, you are an Indian, you are a nationalist, you are anti-national. All of these are fragments and layers of our identity.
Right.
You are a writer, you are an artist, you are a philosopher, all of these are layers of your identity.
Yes.
Second, that's one. Second, in terms of conditioning, ये जो हमारा sense of identity होता है, it's not always driven by our internal choices.
Okay.
Your name is given by your parents.
Right.
Your cultural identity is decided by your family ancestry.
Right.
Your piece of identity, which is your आपका nationality क्या है, आपका domicile क्या है, it's by the virtue of where you were born.
Right.
Right. And all the other pieces of identity, यहाँ पे not all the decisions were made by yourself.
Right.
आप अगर engineer हो, जैसे बहुत सारे लोगों का example होता है, right? डिग्री है इंजीनियरिंग की, लेकिन हम लोग काम कुछ और ही करते हैं. That engineer tag is a part of our identity. It was
Right.
not, probably not for everybody, it was not their own decision.
Right.
So the society, your family, it's throughout your first 15 years when we are not able to make our own decisions, because we are still getting information in terms of how this world is operating. हमारा ट्रेनिंग चल रहा होता है, राइट? ये दुनिया कैसे काम करती है और इसमें कैसे बिहेव करना है, उसका ट्रेनिंग मिल रहा है हम लोग को पहले 15 साल.
Bicycle means.
Yes. So यहाँ पे बाहर की जो दुनिया है, be it your family, your extended family, or your society, or your country, it's trying to tell you what is right, what is wrong.
Right.
ये करना सही है, ये करना गलत है. Which is what we call as conditioning.
Right.
यहाँ पे एक direct influence भी है और एक indirect influence भी है. Direct influence मतलब जो लोग खुल्लम खुल्ला बोल रहे हैं कि ये सही है, ये गलत है. दारू पीना गलत है, सुट्टा मारना गलत है, ड्रग्स करना गलत है, ये करना सही है, ये करना गलत है, राइट? रात के 11 बजे बाहर रहना गलत है. लड़की हो तो तुमको 7 बजे से पहले घर आना चाहिए, उसके बाद बाहर रहना गलत है. All of these rules which external forces are trying to impose on us is happening in this 0 to 15-year-old.
Right.
Where we are ready to accept it because we don't know what is better for us, what is good for us.
Easily influenceable.
Right? We are in that age where we are being groomed,
Right.
in the right sense of the word. This is conditioning. Indirect influence क्या है कि हम लोग को आपको बोल रहे हैं कि 7 बजे के बाद एक स्त्री को, एक लड़की को बाहर नहीं रहना चाहिए. मेरी माँ तो 9 बजे घर आती है उसके ऑफिस से. तो मतलब कुछ तो गड़बड़ है.
Right.
मतलब आप बोलते कुछ हो और करते कुछ और हो. आप मेरे को बोलते हो कि मेरे को 7 बजे से पहले घर आना चाहिए क्योंकि बाहर ये ऐसा होता है वैसा होता है और लड़की को बाहर नहीं रहना चाहिए, लेकिन मेरे नेबर की जो बेटी है जो मेरी सेम एज की है वो तो 8 बजे रोज जाती है बाहर कॉफ़ी पीने के लिए दोस्तों के साथ, तो 10 बजे घर आती है. उसके साथ तो कुछ हुआ नहीं. तो अगर वो जा सकती है तो मैं क्यों नहीं जा सकती?
What is taught versus what is seen.
Yes, right. So what is taught versus what is seen. Exactly. So that is what is taught is your direct influence. What is seen is indirect influence because you are collecting information which is in contrast to what you are being told.
Right.
About what is right, what is wrong. So when we exit that period of 0 to 15 years approximately, and when we enter our teen years or teenage years, that is essentially where we start getting rebellious. That is essentially where we start breaking those rules, right? कि आपने मेरे को ये रूल बोला था लेकिन मैं ये रूल तोड़ के देखूंगा क्योंकि मेरे को सीखना है कि क्या सही क्या गलत मेरा वर्जन क्या है. Right? That is essentially where the conflict begins because the society is trying to force you to believe that this is right, this is wrong, and you want to break those rules, right? Because you see that ये rule sense नहीं बनता आपके लिए, right? And that is, if you look at our generation, right, जो हम लोग millennial की generation बोलते हैं, यहाँ पे बहुत बड़े socio-political changes हुए,
right?
If you look at the political history of this country and the social history of this country, 1991 में लिबरल हुआ हमारा मार्केट, राइट, वेयर मनमोहन सिंह एंड पीवी नरसिम्हा राव ने वो नए रिफॉर्म्स लेके आए जहाँ पे हमारा मार्केट लिबरेट हो गया. वी मूव फ्रॉम लाइसेंस राज टू ओपन मार्केट इकोनॉमी,
राइट,
which brought in a lot more businesses to our country, which freed up businesses to do more things. TVs आ गए, नई टेक्नोलॉजीज आ गई, फोन्स आ गए. we are जो 90s born लोग हैं ना, उन्होंने वो शिफ्ट बहुत स्पीड में देखा है.
And it was the start of I mean the entire digital reformation जो हुआ देश का. I mean social media तो हमारे age से चालू हुआ है. We remember all of us, I'm sure 90s kids remember the old Instagram icons. और उसके पहले तो वो electronic phones. So पूरा market ही started with this.
So pre-90s, so early 90s was postcards and telegrams. 99 में इंटरनेट शुरू होता है, .com bubble आता है, इंटरनेट bursts, it reaches everywhere. फिर हम लोग ने डायल अप भी देखा है, हम लोग ने मॉडेम्स भी देखे हैं, हम लोग ने ब्रॉडबैंड भी देखा है, हम लोग ने 1G देखा है, 2G देखा है, 3G देखा है, 4G देखा है और अभी 5G की बात चल रही है. All of this has happened in the last 20 years. It's a period of rapid change.
Crazy. Yes.
With this rapid change, the information has started moving way faster. उसके पहले इन्फॉर्मेशन इतनी तेज नहीं हुई,
राइट.
आपको वेट करना पड़ता था कि कल सुबह पेपर आएगा, उसके बाद आपको पता चलेगा कि दुनिया में क्या चल रहा है.
हाँ, मतलब फोन कॉल ही था वो तो लोकल लैंडलाइन के कॉल्स थे.
एग्जैक्ट. उसके बाद आपको अगर किसी से बात करनी तो उसको खत लिखोगे, जो खत उसको 2 हफ्ते बाद पहुंचेगा, फिर 2 हफ्ते के बाद रिप्लाई मिलेगा. It was a period of very slow information transfer to now where you can have a call with someone in America right now.
Yes.
Like this. Free of cost.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're doing a WhatsApp call, it's actually free of cost.
Yes.
Right? So this has been a period of rapid change. Because this period has been a period of rapid change, the society's understanding of what is right, what is wrong has also changed.
Yes. Way too fast, I'm sure.
Way too fast.
Yeah.
And this transition has caused a lot of conflict because our understanding of what is right, what is wrong has changed completely. जो हम लोग को हमारे अर्ली पीरियड में बताया गया था, जहाँ पे सोशो पॉलिटिकल रियलिटी कुछ अलग थी कि ये सही ये गलत, वो आज रेलेवेंट नहीं है. जो उस टाइम पे शायद रेलेवेंट था, जिस टाइम पे फ़ोन नहीं थे, टेक्स्ट्स नहीं थे, फ़ोन कॉल कर नहीं सकते थे, अगर आपको कुछ हेल्प चाहिए, मदद चाहिए तो आप किसी को बुला नहीं सकते थे.
राइट.
मान के चलो यू आर अ सिंगल वुमन हु इज ट्रैवलिंग थ्रू द रोड्स ऑफ पुणे बैक इन 92. If something wrong happens to you, nobody is going to find out for the next 5 days.
Yes.
Now, where you can find out about it in the next 5 seconds.
Of course.
So the behavioral patterns which were relevant back then may not be relevant right now.
Of course.
And this entire struggle and this entire conflict is this. Right? जो 10 साल पहले 20 साल पहले appropriate behavior था, वो शायद आज appropriate behavior नहीं है. जो रोल आपने डिफाइन किया गया था, जो सोसाइटी को एक्सेप्टेबल था कि ये टिपिकल मेल जेंडर का रोल है, ये टिपिकल फीमेल जेंडर का रोल है, वो आज शायद एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है. एंड आई अंडरस्टैंड इट्स अ पीरियड ऑफ वेरी रफ ट्रांजिशन. इट्स फिल्ड विद अ लॉट ऑफ बम्प्स. इट्स नॉट अ वेरी स्मूथ ट्रांजिशन क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी इतनी तेजी से इवॉल्व हो रही है. राइट. दैट्स द रीजन व्हाई वी आर इन दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट राइट. इफ यू रिमेंबर व्हाट यूज्ड टू हैपन, राइट, ऐसा नहीं है कि एक बंदा इमोशनल नहीं हो सकता. ऐसा भी नहीं है कि एक फीमेल, एक औरत, एक फीमेल प्रैग्मेटिक या रूथलेस नहीं हो सकती. We've seen cases like Indira Nooyi, who was the CEO of Pepsi.
Yes.
Right? And we've seen people like, say, Piyush Mishra.
Yes.
Who has so much command over his emotions.
मतलब duality तो इंसान का nature ही है, right?
Nah. The main point is emotions and logic, both of them are essential ingredients of any individual. Period.
Right. Not one without the other. Yes.
back then, 20 years back, the society was behaving in a certain condition where the male figure was asked consciously to disregard his emotion and keep on working. Where the female was asked to perform a certain role because the society was not safe enough for her to venture out.
Right.
Right? Which is why you had those repeating sense of notions कि यार तुम लड़का हो, तुम रो नहीं सकते, ये inappropriate behavior है, तुम ऐसे behave नहीं कर सकते, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. These rules were meant for both males and females.
Right.
अलग-अलग rules. Males को और rules were to suppress their emotions. Females के लिए rules थे to suppress their movement in the society, which is not relevant today. All we need to do is accept that the time has changed, and probably if the time has changed, we can head back to our natural sense of who we are. We can be who we are. We don't need to fight with each other. ये जो पूरा झगड़ा चल रहा है ना, इसमें एक और बहुत important undercurrent है, which is predominantly come from the West. If you look at the entire Western society, it's extremely individualistic.
Yes.
Right? क्यों इतनी इंडिविजुअलिस्टिक है, क्यों इतनी हाइपर कॉम्पिटिटिव है? इट्स अ ओपन मार्केट इकोनॉमी, प्योरली ओपन मार्केट इकोनॉमी. When there is competition, there is stress. When there is stress, there is a lot of consumption because you want to relieve your stress.
Yes.
The sense of competition there in the Western society has reached to a point where the male is fighting with the female to decide who is supreme.
Right.
Right? This ultra competitive philosophy of life is one of the undercurrents of why we are fighting with each other.
Right.
Because we are constantly trying to prove कि मेरे को तुम्हारी ज़रूरत नहीं, तुमको मेरी ज़रूरत नहीं.
And we are getting influenced by the Western
getting
powers,
influenced.
social media and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That is definitely a big problem, right? Because chalo, I understand that so this is one thing which I would definitely like to talk about. As individual, as a human, it's a fundamental right to make our own decisions. Doesn't matter if I'm making right decisions or wrong decisions in your perception.
Right.
Because it is right for me, maybe wrong for you, but it is right for me. And it is my fundamental right, it is my fundamental freedom to make my own choices. If someone else is making choices for me, that is definitely wrong. With that understanding, I think it's stupid to compete with each other. In the sense, it's stupid to compete whether the male is supreme or the female is supreme. I think from a civilizational sense, both of them have a very important role to play.
Yes.
Traditionally speaking, or conventionally speaking, or philosophically speaking, the masculine form of energy, whether that energy resides in a male or a female,
right,
a boy or a girl, it's immaterial.
Yes.
It's energy. It's energy. The masculine energy has always been about going out there in uncharted territories, capture that territory, get control over that territory, bring resources back home. The female energy has always been to nurture what you have, to love what you have, to build what you have, to grow what you have. Right?
This is just evolution.
This is just evolution. This is true across all species.
Yes.
Even if you look at animal kingdoms.
Yes.
It's the similar problem. हाँ, इसका मतलब ये है कि एक फीमेल, एक लड़की ambitious नहीं हो सकती?
Of course.
Definitely हो सकती है.
Yeah.
She can have that masculine energy. She can have that masculine trait. Again, यहाँ पे it's not. I'm not speaking from a judgmental point of view. यार तुम लड़का हो या तुम लड़की हो और तुम लड़की हो फिर भी तुम्हारे पास masculine energy क्यों है? It's just energy, right? There's no good or bad here. There's no right or wrong here. Both of these energies are important. And as females can have that masculine energy in terms of going out there and achieving their goals and going into uncharted territories and building things from scratch and getting control over society, males can also have that nurturing energy.
Right.
Where they can provide nourishment to what they have. Right? If you look at the farmer's job is that of it's a very feminine energy. Because you've got a piece of land, you're nurturing that piece of land, you're taking care of that piece of land, and it is giving you food.
Yes. Yes.
All I'm trying to say is this fight between the male and the female to determine who is superior is a stupid battle to fight.
Yes.
all we need to understand is, okay, you've got certain traits, I've got certain traits. You've got certain identity, I've got certain identity. You've got a certain personality, I've got a certain personality. You've got certain purpose, I've got a certain purpose.
Okay.
Both of us have some motivations.
Right.
How can we partner with each other, collaborate with each other to achieve our goals?
Right.
How can we balance each other out? So this entire debate about you complete me and ये कैसे हो सकता है? It's about this. It's about complementing each other.
Right.
Because when we start complementing each other, then we build something much larger than ourselves.
Right.
And both forms
Yeah.
of energy are very important and essential for the existence of the civilization in the first place.
Yes.
You cannot separate the two.
Grow and protect.
Yes. जैसे आप emotion और logic को separate नहीं कर सकते, वैसे masculine feminine को separate नहीं कर सकते.
Yes.
There's no point in proving whether emotion is superior than logic or logic is superior than emotion.
I mean, even our deities, I mean, I'm not sure how many religious or spiritual people are watching this, but if I'm not wrong, even our deities, for example, Krishna, is a very, very distinct example of having masculine as well as feminine energies. Right? I mean, he could be the destroyer as well as he could be someone who nurtured, someone who consulted, someone who, was the wise personality in the entire story.
Yes.
So, I mean, the deities we look up to, right? I mean, our entire religion has constantly emphasized on us having and being two energies at the same time.
Yes.
Because now, if you consider what the conversation we've just had, now if you consider, okay, I or the people who are watching right now, we have both the energies. Once we acknowledge these two energies, फिर वो conflict खत्म हो जाएगी ना. Because understanding जब आती है, तब conflict खत्म होता है उसका. So, which is why I've always had this sort of belief कि to understand the women in my life, I truly need to embrace firstly my feminine energy.
Yes.
So I can understand what it is basically like to have a connection or have a sort of relationship with the women in my life.
Yes.
To enhance it, to be a better friend, partner, son, child, whatever roles I play with them.
Yes.
So it's extremely essential to have both the energies, acknowledge them, understand them, and keep enhancing them.
Yes.
I mean, the minute that's going to happen, I think ये conflict ही खत्म हो जाएगा. Because I also believe a lot of external factors are sort of driving a wedge between man and woman.
Yes.
क्योंकि हमें बहुत सारी चीजें हमें दिखती नहीं है. There are a lot of forces at play right now. But
Yes.
Kaliyug है, sir जी. I mean, conflict is the reality. Do you believe in Kaliyug? Do you believe in all of that state of?
I have a very curious argument to make here.
Okay, let me rephrase a question.
Yes.
I just thought of something very interesting. Regardless of if you believe in Kaliyug or not, I'm sure you know Kaliyug, what it is. How is Kaliyug and decision making going to play a part in our lives? How will both the things play their own consecutive parts? Strikers end or bowlers end, whatever the other end is.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are 4 yugs, right?
Yeah.
Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kaliyug.
You definitely believe in. You know what Kaliyug is. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are 4 yugs.
Yeah.
Okay? The beautiful part about the Hindu philosophy of life is their understanding of time. Because their understanding of time is not linear, it's cyclical. Right? Sadhguru says in a very interesting statement, time is not an entity in itself, it's an outcome. Our sense of time is derived from the motion of Earth around Sun. That is what time is to us.
Yes.
If we move from the planet Earth to planet Mars, our sense of time will be completely different.
Of course.
Right? Hence, time is not an absolute entity, but it's a relational entity. It's a relative entity.
Of course.
And because it's a circular motion, the time should also be cyclical. Because the Earth is not just moving around the Sun, it's also rotating around itself. It's not just rotating around itself, the axis of rotation is also tilting a little. Okay? Which is what, so when we talk about equinoxes, so there's a solstice and there's equinox, right? When we talk about equinoxes, it relates to the tilt of the axis around which Earth rotates around itself. This is exactly what or this is essentially what derives your 4 yugas. They are linked to each other. So you've got a Satya Yuga, you've got a Treta Yuga, you've got a Dwapar Yuga, and you've got a Kali Yuga. Philosophy says Dharma will be at its peak in Satya Yuga, and it will be at its lowest or weakest in Kali Yuga.
Yes.
So essentially, your sense of Dharma is getting diluted from Satya to Kali.
Okay.
Dharma, for me, and a lot of people also, is not religion per se. Religion is a component of it, but Dharma is a much wider entity. For me, if I have to put it in one word, English is not sometimes enough to explain what these Sanskrit words mean.
Of course.
But let's speak of Dharma in the sense of morality. Right? You've got a Pitru Dharma, you've got a Raj Dharma, you've got different forms of Dharma. Right? When we say ki I am doing my job religiously, what does it mean? It means you're doing your job ethically, you're doing your job morally, right? There is a sense of how you should operate in a certain role, and your sense of morality is how true you are to that role, right? If you're a journalist, it's your job to cover the story as it is and get all the facts possible that you can about that story.
In a holistic way.
In a holistic way.
Yes, it should.
Because you are narrating what happened and what are the implications of that on the society
Right.
to your audience. But as a journalist, if you just pick up one fact and then create a rosy picture around it and create a full script around it, you're not doing your job morally right because you don't have any facts. You're just concocting a story. So यहाँ पे आपके biases आने वाले because you're not working with the facts. Zooming out, your dharma will be at the peak in Satya, and your dharma will be at its weakest in Kaliyug.
Yes.
That's what the scripture says. My argument is, now if you look at all the texts, okay, before I even make that argument, if you look at texts, there's a particular number which is assigned to how long this cycle is. That number is 43,20,000 years.
Quite short.
Yeah. My argument is that number is wrong,
Yeah.
and it's a translation error.
Okay.
My argument is that this cycle of 4 yugas or 4 yugas, it's not 43 lakh year long, it's 12,000 year long.
Okay.
Some 12,315 to be more precise. I may be wrong here and there. And I don't have conclusive proof for this right now. It's just a theory, it's just my point of view. I may be horrendously wrong on this. But the way I look at events, this number makes more sense to me than the 43 lakh number.
Okay.
So again, I'll tell you why. Having said that, if you look at the 4 yugas, 4 yuga cycle as 12,000 year long, I stand to make an argument that either Kaliyug has already ended or the end of Kaliyug is just around the corner.
Okay.
Interestingly, Isha Foundation, run by Sadhguru, came up with an article a few months ago saying the same thing, that Kaliyug is already ended,
Right.
and we are in Dwapar Yuga right now. Okay. Now, I'll come back to how all of it connects to decision making, but this is very interesting, right? One, it's a common notion that when Kaliyug will end, we'll switch back to Satya Yuga once again, which is not the case. If we consider that the time is cyclical, right? We went from Satya, Treta, Dwapar to Kali. So Dharma took 4 yugas to dilute itself from its peak to its weakest form.
Right.
Then the logic says to achieve its peak form, it has to again go through those same 4 cycles, 4 yugas. So the cycle essentially goes from Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali, Kali, Dwapar, Treta, Satya.
Right.
Right? So it has to take its own time.
Right.
In that sense, the Isha Foundation article that Kaliyug is already ended and we are in Dwapar makes sense to me.
Okay.
Now, coming back to why I feel that 12,000 number is much more sensible than 43 lakh number. Let's look at 2 events. First is Ramayana, second is Mahabharata. 2 distinct features of these yugas. Treta Yuga had 3 avatars of Vishnu, one of them was Rama. Dwapar Yuga, Mahabharata happened in Dwapar Yuga, And the death of Krishna essentially triggered the start of Kaliyug.
Yes.
Right? The evidences that have been collected as of now, astronomical evidences as well as physical evidences, archaeological evidences, point that Mahabharata happened somewhere around 5,000 years ago.
Okay.
Ramayana with astronomical evidences that we have in terms of so there are instances where the planetary arrangement of when Ram was born is mentioned. Right? There is a particular constellation which was there, particular grouping of planets and stars which was there when Ram was born. If you look at those kind of astronomical evidences, Ramayana happened somewhere between 7,000 years to 9,000 years ago. Okay? If Ramayana happened say 7,000 years ago and Mahabharata happened say some 5,000 years ago, and Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga, Mahabharata happened in Dwapar Yuga, then how do you tally a few lakh years of time frame?
Yes.
For those 4 years.
Yes.
Doesn't match. Right? Which is why I've theorized that this cycle is not 43 lakh years ago, it's 43 lakh years long, it's hardly 12,000 years long, which makes sense to me, and I can share the exact calculations with you if you want. It's one of my pursuits to figure out actual evidences for this calculation and figure out what this actually means. Now, coming back to why this is important and why this relates to decision making and why this interests me. When we talk about morality and when we talk about ethics, right, it has a direct impact on how we are making our decisions.
Right.
Right? Our sense of morality, what is morality? Right? Morality again is the sense of what is right, what is wrong. At an individual level, at a team level, at a society level, at a national level, at a civilizational level. Our sense of understanding of what is right, what is wrong. I'll give you a few examples. Controversial example, but let's assume I run a pharma company.
Okay.
I am selling medicines which save your life. I have raised funds from the public. I have got n number of shareholders to prove that I am running a good business. I have top line pressure. I have to earn as much revenue as I can. What is the incentive for me? If there are people dying of diseases, only then can I sell my medicines.
Right.
If people are healthy,
No business from me.
there's no business for me. Right?
Maybe supplementation business, but
Yeah. So if people are not dying, if there are no diseases in the market, then how do I sell my drugs?
right.
Does that, if I have to engineer diseases, if I have to engineer pandemics, if I have to engineer mass scale disorders for which I can sell my medicines, business wise, it's going to earn me a lot of money. Logically speaking, it's going to make me a lot of money.
Great business idea. Yeah.
It's a great business plan. First engineer a pandemic, then you sell drugs to solve that pandemic.
Yes.
Because you have got patents, nobody else can sell that drug to anybody.
Yes.
So you are going to make the most out of it.
Yes.
Out of sense of morality, is it right or wrong? Mind you, this is not a very hypothetical example. This happens in our world.
Sure.
Maybe it's not spoken of to a large extent. Maybe we'll be blamed or we'll be labeled as conspiracy theorists, but it's fine. This happens in the society. Right?
No, I believe we are capable of worse than this. So
Yes. Let's look at wars.
Yeah.
Why do we have wars?
Yeah.
Why do we engineer wars? Why do we engineer these many conflicts?
Yeah.
Because if there is no war, you're not going to sell any weapons. As a marketeer, you sell your service, you sell your product to solve certain person's problem. But if the problem doesn't exist, there is no need for your solution. So logically speaking, hypothetically speaking,
Yes.
creating a problem for which your product is a solution sounds like fairly logical to me.
Yes.
If you can ensure that by creating this problem you're not taking someone's life, you're not breaking any laws, then what's the harm? But strictly from a morality angle, is it right? Is it morally right?
Of course.
But that's the time we live in right now. Our sense of morality is distorted.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's very interesting how over the past few years, I mean, in our very limited experience and our existence, the grey area with everything, the truth, morality, happiness, sadness, whatever it is, the grey area is being referenced a lot. बहुत बार बोलते हैं हम कि it's not black or white, it's grey. So वो तो है ही, मतलब now everything has been distorted, like you said. There's very little concrete action or conclusion to any of this. But I mean, yeah, and I mean, of course, it makes sense, like you said. Or now in this phase of the podcast, which I call, घर के बाहर निकलते time, lights और fans बंद है क्या देख के जाना. Just wrapping up the loose ends. I asked you which decision you struggle with the most. Now, at the end of it all, now that I know you're a student of decision making and the audience knows as well, ये सारे इंफॉर्मेशन की वजह से कौन सा एक ऐसा प्रॉब्लम है जो लाइफ में बहुत आसानी से सॉल्व हुआ है विद द इंफॉर्मेशन यू हैव विद डिसीजन मेकिंग? क्लैरिटी किस चीज के बारे में आ गई?
My sense of purpose.
Okay.
So, the common mistake which most of us make, and I am also a part of the same group,
Right.
is we tend to make our decisions based on what motivates us.
Yes.
Motivations are generally temporary.
Yes.
It's limited to that particular period of time.
Yeah.
The sense of purpose is much more long term. Your sense of purpose is something which you can devote your entire life. कि मेरे लाइफ के अगले 40 साल 50 साल से मैं यही करने वाला हूँ. Doesn't matter what the market needs. Market is cyclical, the economy is cyclical, parties will come and go, governments will come and go, wars will come and go. Everything will keep on happening in its own due course of time. Irrespective of what happens in the external world. What is my purpose of life?
Okay.
Why am I on this planet Earth right now?
Yes.
And what is the role I'm meant to play?
Yes.
All of us are actors and this world is our stage.
Yes.
But what is that role that I'm meant to play for my entire life?
Yes.
I don't want to keep on switching my roles. Momentarily speaking, there may be incentives for me to switch my role. Do one job, then do the other job, then do the other job, and when I'm switching, I'm earning more money.
Yes.
But it doesn't excite me.
Yes.
I believe with this entire process and during this entire phase in the last 2 years, the only sense of clarity is my sense of purpose, which I believe is to help. Just to help. It may be with anything. It may be helping you make a certain decision. Or it may be to just give you information which will help you make decisions.
Right.
I cannot make decisions for you. I cannot force decisions on you. I cannot tell you what is right or wrong. I can only tell you if these are the consequences you want, these are the choices you have to make.
Okay.
Whether you make those choices or not, it's up to you.
Great.
But that's the only clarity. My purpose is to help.
I mean, that's a big win if you ask me, because a lot of people are struggling with the purpose, with their purpose or with purpose of anything, with life especially. Like, हमें उठने के बाद ये सबसे बड़ा question रहता है, सबसे बड़ा
On that point, I can tell you one thing: there are ways and techniques to find your purpose.
Okay.
It may take you to complete that exercise. It may take you a day, a couple of hours, or a month, or a
Yes.
year. That's up to you.
Yes.
But there are specific exercises which you can do to find your purpose.
I think Prathamesh sir right now is pointing to a course, if I'm not wrong, right? You're designing a course which will include, I think, some very insightful study material that can help people take decisions, if I'm not wrong. And you'll be launching the course soon, right?
Yes.
I mean, the details of all of that will be on his social media as well. The page will be uploading, our page will be uploading the course details as well. But yeah, thank you for this extremely insightful conversation. I mean, I've always known you to be a lovely friend. This was very insightful because it helps the audience as well as I understand, थोड़ा ऑफ द ग्रिड जो प्रोफेशन होता है उसकी जर्नी कैसे रहती है, क्योंकि हमेशा हमारा प्लान ऑफ एक्शन, हमारा करियर जो है, हमारा जॉब जो है, हम दिन में 8 घंटे क्या करते हैं, ये पेरेंट्स, इनर सर्कल और ये जो XYZ लोग हैं उनके लिए जस्टिफाई करना बहुत मुश्किल रहता है, क्योंकि ये अगेन कंडीशनिंग के बारे में हम बोलते हैं कि हमारे लिए जॉब मतलब ऑफिस, एक लैपटॉप के सामने बैठो 8 घंटे. बट ये भी एक बहुत प्यारा प्रोफेशन है, एक बहुत प्यारा वे ऑफ लाइफ है डिसीजन मेकिंग. So thank you for these lovely insights. I'm sure we'll be doing this again. The details for all of the social media handles will be right down somewhere in the bio, at the bottom of the video. So yes, till then, have a lovely day, night, evening, whatever time you're watching right now. Please take care and please feel free to reach out to him. In the comment section, let us know what sort of content, what sort of guests you'd be more interested, in me having a conversation with. Till then, have a lovely time. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon and everything that goes on with all the buzzwords. Take care. Peace out.